What the hell is NerdCrave, right? I mean, I always talk about video games on this channel. Why NerdCrave? Well, if you've ever watched my channel trailer, you'd know theoretically, I want to talk about everything nerdy. Comics, video games, movies, TV, toys, statues, whatever, right? And there are a few videos like that on this channel. And today, Shawn, my friend Shawn and I, want to talk about our top 20 favorite TV shows. And, this is not necessarily any kind of definitive list of the best. We're not referring to IMDb or Metacritic ratings or anything like that. These are shows that spoke to us throughout our lifetime. These are our personal favorite shows that we go back to, that we enjoy, that we absolutely love to watch and to remember and feel fondly. A lot of my personal picks are shows that give me that warm, fuzzy feeling. Those couple of shows that you go back to over and over and over again, that you've watched 5 times, 10 times. And so without any further ado, I'm going to let Shawn take the lead here because he's got some pretty interesting picks, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Hey Aaron, thanks for a wonderful introduction, both to me and this video. I think we've had enough banter for now with this very live conversation. So let me just get right into my first pick. I have chosen ER to be one of my top 10 favorite shows for now. It's not something I would have ever have thought I would have liked. A hospital drama when I was that age when it came out? No. But I really did like it. I think it's because it did push some boundaries. It was violent in some times, and it was heartfelt in others. There's a few standout episodes that really stick with me to this day more than a lot of other shows. I think that's why. Like the series finale. Okay, season 8 finale. What an emotional ride that one was. And yeah, the series went on for another 7 seasons. And although it never hit the same high as the rest of the show, it never really felt bad either. Maybe unnecessary, but nothing offensive. So yeah, ER, great show. Oh, I should specify, it's the ER with George Clooney. Wait, no. It's the ER with George Clooney in the 90s, not the 80s sitcom one. That's a different story. And that's E/R, or I guess, wait, to you guys it would be this slash, I think. I don't know. Whatever. Next.
Thanks, Shawn. ER is a show I probably wouldn't have thought to put on this list. It is a pretty good show. I watched a little bit of it back in the day. I absolutely love Noah Wiley's character. He's a great actor anyway, and he's going to play into one of my favorite shows later on. But for now, my first pick is going to be the Stargate series. And Stargate series started out in the 90s with a movie starring Kurt Russell. The idea being that on Earth we uncovered this ancient artifact in Egypt, which was this, disc, this big gate that once they figured out how to power it up, they could travel to other planets that also had stargates that were built by this ancient race that was now long gone, of course. And the movie was fantastic, talking about the origins of a lot of the mythology on Earth, the ancient Egyptians and all that sort of thing. Plays into the sort of ancient aliens sort of idea. And I always found the entire concept super intriguing. So Stargate SG-1 was a series started in the 90s to spin off from that movie and expand on it. The main character in this is Richard Dean Anderson. You may know him from MacGyver fame, and the show's fantastic. There are actually several different iterations of this franchise. It's always kind of been considered as, one of the best sci-fi franchises next to Star Trek. I would say it's pretty close to neck and neck in terms of the quality of the writing, the quality of the acting, and, their commitment to some level of believable sci-fi, at least pseudo-science, if you will. SG-1, I'm currently actually watching Season 2 right now. had, I think, 9 or 10, maybe even 11 seasons. I can't remember exactly, but it was quite prolific. There's a lot of episodes. And then there was Stargate Atlantis, which had, I think, 5 or 6 seasons. And then there was Stargate Universe, which had tragically only 2 seasons. It was fantastic, and it was cut short. There was also several movies, both in the SGU and in the SG-1 and SG Atlantis universe that kind of expanded stories or tied up loose ends. I think there was at least 3 movies based in this universe. And then there was also a web series called Stargate Origins, which went back to the 1940s, World War II sort of era, and explored some of the beginnings of the research on the gate. But anyway, I absolutely love this show. Shawn, what's your next pick?
Hey, as much as ER was maybe a surprise to some people who know me that would be one of my favorite shows, I don't think South Park is a surprise to anybody who knows me. Maybe on video I don't quite present myself quite as offensive or awful, but I am. It's alright, I like it. South Park really hits home with me because it's super smart, like me, and it's offensive, like me, and it also is mostly impartial, in the sense that it doesn't just pick a side and then runs with it and living in an echo chamber where it doesn't even entertain the other side of a story. Not that South Park was always that way. South Park used to be mostly just offensive and funny. But as years have gone on, it's matured. That's unlike me. And, I really like it, and I'm happy it's still going, although I think they're getting bored of making it, because even I'm getting a little bored of watching it, but the seasons are so short, it's no chore.
In the vein of shows that I just keep going back to over and over again that I just can't get enough of, we have The X-Files. I absolutely love this show. It came around at the right time when I was in that impressionable 90s phase. I was a late teenager, and of course when you're a teenager you're pretty impressionable to all the conspiracy theories and all of that kind of stuff, and I just absolutely ate this show up. The idea of, a team of FBI agents, Fox and Mulder and Dana Scully, investigating all of this weird and unusual stuff that at the time I hadn't really been exposed to. I hadn't discovered, shows like Coast to Coast with George Norrie or something at that point. I guess it would have been Art Bell back then, not George Norrie, but, it was absolutely opening my eyes to this whole new world below the surface that I didn't really know existed. Things like, I'd watched Harry and the Hendersons, but I didn't really know that there were people out there that believed that Sasquatch was real. I just, as a kid, I thought it was basically a cartoony, little mythical figure or whatever. I didn't know that people actually believed this stuff was real. So to start watching a show like The X-Files and see them take these topics like cryptozoology very, very seriously, and of course,
Aaron, I know this is a live conversation, and this is totally not pre-recorded, as we've established, but I might have to mess up your flow here with editing. You get 10, I get 10, but I'm gonna lump 2 together here, because for me, Cheers and Night Court are basically 2 halves of the same story. Now, when they first came out, I was probably a little too young to really give a crap. But as I was getting older, there was this wonderful... I don't know if this was everywhere in North America, but at least, where I'm from, we had Cheers and Night Court late at night, like around, 10 p.m. And it was the most fantastic hour of comedy and heart, They were the same, but different, and it just felt good to watch that before going to bed. I don't know how to explain those shows without going into a lot of detail, but it was peak sitcom, It had an idea, it presented it well, and it just was so long-lasting and ongoing. to the point where both of them, to this day, still have spin-offs in the same continuity. Not reboots or anything, spin-offs. Now, Cheers is going to be getting another Frasier show. I mean, I think Cheers has what? I think there was a Carla show. There's a Lily show. Now another Frasier show. I think that's all the spin-offs. And Night Court's still going on with its new reboot, or maybe that first season's over now. But the point is, they're such long-lasting shows, and for a good reason. If you guys haven't checked them out, do it.
You may notice as we get through this list, because we're both 40-somethings, that a lot of the shows on this list are kind of 90s-centric, particularly for me. And that trend continues with Home Improvement, which I claim is the best sitcom ever made. They don't make them like this anymore. And, you know, there's several in the same vein with the family values and the nuclear family that they describe, you know, a couple of kids, a husband and a wife that are, you know, maybe they fight a little bit, but they're a happy, strong, positive family. You have shows even like Roseanne, which at the time most people thought Roseanne was, you know, pretty rough and trashy, but going back and watching something like Roseanne now is still a lot more heartwarming than a lot of the shows that are on today, because Roseanne and Dan really did love each other at the end of the day. But I'm talking about the wrong show here. Home Improvement. Tim the Toolman Taylor. As a guy who was always in love with building things and renovating things and that sort of thing, I absolutely love the subject matter of this show. I really love the segments on Tool Time with Tim and Al, where Tim's always screwing something up. I could really relate to that as a kid.
I learned a long time ago to not watch TV shows until they're done. A sitcom that goes episode by episode with no continuing story, sure, whatever, I can watch that. But a show like Breaking Bad, which is my current pick, by the way, there's a continuous story here, and if it's really good, I'll get invested in it, and I'll spend years watching it and taking time, and then it gets canceled, and I'm left with going, what happened? What's going on? I think most people can feel that way about Firefly, right? Which, although did get a movie conclusion, it still felt like another chapter, just with some loose ends tied up, but a whole new one set open. Like, well, what's going on? Joss Whedon's other show, Dollhouse, it was canceled, but it did have a conclusion. It felt rushed, but it was there. So with Breaking Bad, I waited to watch the show until it was airing its last season, and I knew it was airing its last season. And man, what an ending. I totally didn't expect it to end as well as it did. So why did I even give it a shot? Well, one, because it ended, and I do love an ending. That's well. But also, I was really interested to see how Bryan Cranston would follow up his role from Malcolm in the Middle to this. It's really well. I always love when I see comedy actors take a serious role, like Ashton Kutcher in Butterfly Effect. Who knew he could do that? And he hasn't done it since. I think the interesting story with Bryan Cranston here is that he was in an episode of X-Files, and that's why he was cast in Breaking Bad, because it was a very similar character, and he thought it'd be perfect, and yeah, it was.
10 years ago, everyone on the planet would have agreed with this next pick, but after the final season of this show, people basically just forgot that the entire series existed, and that is Game of Thrones, my friends. I absolutely love this show. I think, without a doubt, this is the best thing that has ever aired on a TV screen. Not movies necessarily, but like, as far as a TV series that was, whether it's on a streaming profile or, regular TV, whatever, I think this is the highest quality TV show ever made. Every single episode of this show is like $100 million blockbuster movie. The amount of money that went into this, the sets, the costumes, the acting, the writing, the music, absolutely just mind-blowingly good. TV has never been as good as Game of Thrones. And there's been some other really high budget TV shows recently, like the the Lord of the Rings thing that Amazon did, which, say what you will about that, I really didn't mind it. A lot of people seem to really hate it, but Game of Thrones, man, this show, I've never had an experience watching a show like I have had week after week with Game of Thrones. Just absolutely mind blown by the spectacle of it all. And you say what you will about the ending, I hated the ending too, but I go back and rewatch this show every couple of years because I just absolutely can't get enough of the world that was built by George R. R. Martin and the writers of this show. It's just absolutely the most immersive, realistic fantasy world that I have ever had the pleasure of seeing. And if you skip the last 2 episodes of this show, there's an episode, the second or third from last episode in the last season, really serves as the proper ending that we all wanted.
Hey, you know what? I think if anyone ever watches my videos, I don't really have a studio. Every video seems to be in a different corner of my place, trying to find something that works. Usually it's random, or whatever's the cleanest at the moment. But I chose this spot today because of that. That's my Star Trek TV show and movie shelf with a few knickknacks, not the games or comics or anything. I picked the entire series of Star Trek. I could see why people, maybe even you, might pick one particular sub-series of Star Trek to focus on, because some are good and some are god-awful. Discovery. But overall, it's all really good, and I am a sucker for continuity and continuation. That's just a huge thing for me. I don't like reboots because I feel it's just someone can't tell their own story and they just want to, cash in on someone else's story. Whereas a continuation, if done well, should respect the story and they want to become part of the overall story, not just cash in on it. Although, nothing wrong with cashing in on it either, right? But yeah, no, the whole series of Star Trek, I love it. There are reboots. I do consider all of this here front stuff, to be a different universe. The JJ movies, Discovery, Lower Decks, and Strange New Worlds. I don't know how I feel about Prodigy yet. I think it is part of the main series so far until I find something that tells me otherwise. And Picard, I consider an actual follow-up to TNG and not some sort of weird reboot. Like, Strange New Worlds doesn't feel like it's part of the original series or anything, but similar to it. I won't get into a big thing on Star Trek. It'll be a 5-year-long video, not hour. It's a long bit of conversation I got in me for that. So I'll leave this alone. But hey, just enjoy that pile, man. Anyone who loves Star Trek, get Star Trek. And if you only love the original stuff or TNG, if you can find this 50th anniversary set, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Go, your turn.
Going back to another sitcom, because I feel like sitcoms are woefully underrated, especially 90s sitcoms. There was a period in time with shows like Home Improvement and Friends and Frasier, and Frasier is actually my pick for this segment. But Frasier, spinning off from Sean's recommendation of Cheers and Night Court, Frasier is a spin-off of Cheers, and I absolutely love this show. This is another show that I just always have in the rotation. Watch a couple episodes a week. The new Frasier is really just a direct continuation of this, so I don't really consider it a separate show. It's, same character 20 years later sort of thing. I love the new show, actually. It's sad that in this new streaming landscape we have, that seasons now are 10, or if you're lucky, 13 episodes. I really feel like sitcoms need to just have a lot of episodes. And back in the day when we got a sitcom, we would get usually 22 episodes, and because it was on regular TV, right, and they would want it to go into syndication after 3 years or so, and in order for something to go into syndication, I believe it needed like 65 episodes, so, they would really pump out the episodes, and it's fantastic to just have such a huge library of something that you love that you can just keep going back to over and over again. And like Home Improvement, although the characters in Frasier and the motif in Frasier is very different, there is still a very charming family motif to this show where Frasier is, maybe he's disconnected from his dad and maybe he has a weird relationship with his brother, but at the end of the day, they love each other and they always learn some kind of lesson or something like that. There's a moral to every story.
Dear Lord, unsolved mysteries. Now, I always have to wonder sometimes, what is the percentage of a great show that is absolute luck, or I guess serendipity if you want to be smart about it, and how much is brilliance in casting, like just whoever puts the whole thing together. Like Unsolved Mysteries, everything's perfect. The timing of it coming out was in an era where, well, at least for me, at my age, and the world around, where just imagination was wild, with space, fantasy, realistic stuff. Like it all blended so well in Unsolved Mysteries. They never tried to tell you that aliens were real or that supernatural things were real when it popped up. And there was real things in there because you really saw mysteries getting solved in updates. And that was fantastic. But that music, oh, I love that music. That might be one of my favorite theme songs of all time. And Robert Stack, holy crap! You couldn't find a better person to deliver it. Not because he was just so solemn and serious, but if you pay attention as an adult, you can see where sometimes he's almost cracking up at some of the things he has to say, like, am I really saying this here? It's wonderful. And, man, I still watch that to this day. My kid watches it, too. I haven't really given a chance to the follow-up shows. They seem okay, but it doesn't have that same magic. Nothing just quite works. And I'm not really faulting anybody with that. It's a different era, different actors. The music's similar, though, and it still tickles.
Fraggle frickin' rock, my dudes. Okay. You had to be there, maybe. I don't know. My kids do like this, coming back to it, or at least they did when they were kids. I love kids' shows. I love cartoons, and I love Jim Henson stuff. My single earliest memory in my entire life is being maybe 2.5, 3 years old, in my parents' living room in like 1980, watching The Muppet Show. That is my earliest memory, sitting on my dad's lap, the old like 19-inch tube TV with the wood grain, sitting on like a little dolly or whatever, because my parents had it on like one of those little lunch serving carts or whatever. The brown everywhere in the living room with the weird tweed couch and everything, and I just remember standing in front of the TV, seeing these Muppets for the very first time on The Muppet Show, and the music and the hilarity and everything. And then, just a few years later, the Jim Henson Company comes out with Fraggle Rock when I was just at the right age, maybe 7, 8, 9 years old. No, maybe not even that old, maybe 6, 7, I don't know. Absolutely love this. There is so much depth to the story. There is so much lore. Back in the days where writers for children's shows didn't treat children like imbeciles. They actually wrote stories with depth and lore, backstories and characters with, I don't know. The world that they built underground for these Fraggles was fantastic, and all of the, the adventures of Uncle Travelin' Matt and everything like that out in the real world. It was so exciting to see these little segments where these little, supposedly imaginary creatures that lived underground would suddenly come out into the real world, and you would think that they were obviously, real characters. They were so believable because they were interacting with humans, which, we've seen that happen with cartoons sometimes, movies like Cool World or Who Framed Roger Rabbit or something, but it just wasn't the same as these wonderful little Muppets, and I have to just thank Jim Henson for so many of my greatest childhood experiences, and this is a show that holds up so well that I can still go back and really enjoy watching an episode of this today.
This is almost the same as Unsolved Mysteries, the perfect combination of everything. From the voice actor for the Crypt Keeper. Wait, did I say what show it is yet? Tales from the Crypt, the live action show. I should probably tell you guys that before we get started. So the Crypt Keeper, wonderful voice, wonderful animatronic they got going on there. By the way, fun fact I learned very recently, the eyes for the Crypt Keeper are repurposed from Chucky. You know, so that's pretty neat. I'd love to see them cross over someday. Like, give me back my eyes! You know, whatever. The stories, like Unsolved Mysteries, every episode was a unique thing, so you didn't have to worry about following episode to episode. I haven't finished all of Tales from the Crypt, but I have it on DVD, the whole thing. And one thing I really love about it is that I'm watching it uncensored now. When I watched it on TV as a kid, they had to censor it for the TV stations that I had. But its original station had, you know, nudity and gore and violence and swearing. Nothing so over the top to make it crass, which, hey, I love crass, but it wasn't. And the actors in it, like so many big actors you know to this day, they didn't get their start there, but they were there, and it was just, wow. Watch that show. I don't know how I would compare it to the entirety of The Twilight Zone, which I did not add on here because I haven't seen the majority of The Twilight Zone, so I don't really have a strong opinion, although I do love what I have seen in The Twilight Zone. I do have all of The Twilight Zone too, so that's another undertaking I'm going to have to do. But Tales from the Crypt, excellent. Oh, side note, Tales from the Crypt Keeper is also a very good show, a cartoon for kids. Very nice too. Oh, and it's one more thing after another. One more thing. The theme by Danny Elfman. Oh.
Well, Sean already kind of stole my thunder with the Star Trek thing. Star Trek is my number one favorite TV franchise of all time. But I did want to get a little bit more specific with that. My absolute favorite series from Star Trek is Deep Space Nine, but really more generally the entire Next Generation arc that encompasses the period of time that's really only, you know, a decade or so in their timeline between the beginning of the Next Generation, which ran for 7 seasons, and then towards the end of the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine picked up. And then, you know, a couple seasons into Deep Space Nine, Voyager started up. And, you know, there was a period in time when all 3 shows were on the air at the same time. And that was a really special time in Star Trek history for me particularly. And going back now, Deep Space Nine, I feel like is my favorite. I really like the cast and crew. I really like the setting on the space station. Staying put gives them the opportunity to discover far more about politics and interracial, interspecies relations and things of that nature, and I just find that sort of thing absolutely fascinating. But I won't spend too long on Star Trek because Sean already stole my thunder.
Alright, I'm going to go in a different direction entirely here. I'm going to go down to a cartoon I watched as a kid. Teddy Ruxpin. It feels weird even saying that, you know. When I was thinking ER was out of place for me, Teddy Ruxpin seems out of place for me. I mean, keep in mind, I was a kid when it came out. And this isn't about the doll with the tapes and all the cool things you could do with that. No, it was the show. One thing I loved about the show is there was a continuing story in Teddy Ruxpin, unlike most cartoons of the time, and it was told so well and had such an interesting mystery that I think any kid can love. Like him trying to find his ancestors, or I guess his species, finding his dad, watching the main villain become like a good guy over time, but not really a good guy, not like a total shift, but the character growth is just something you wouldn't expect in an 80s cartoon like that. And there is closure, and I'm so happy I did find a DVD copy in town here, because on TV, especially here in Saskatchewan on the 2 channels you ever got in small towns, they never aired things in order. You just kind of hope to remember and piece it together as you go. But having it on DVD, you can watch all of it in order and really get the full experience. And I think no one talks about Teddy Ruxpin enough, other than the doll. You know, watch the show. It's wonderful.
Shawn, you and I are more alike than I think a lot of people think. This is my copy of The Complete Adventures of Teddy Ruxpin, and I absolutely love that show too, man. I grew up with that show. I have to think that probably the Disney afternoon shows slightly edged Teddy Ruxpin out in terms of my favorite Saturday morning or, breakfast cartoons, if you will. But I absolutely love Teddy Ruxpin. Now for my pick here, I want to go into the realm of reality shows because this is a genre that I have increasingly gone back to in the last couple of years, really since the pandemic. When reality shows really started to be a thing in the very early 2000s, like right around the millennium, we started to see shows crop up like Fear Factor and Survivor and The Amazing Race, and of course Donald Trump's The Apprentice. Well, the one that really hit home for me, and I don't have anything here to show, I don't have a DVD copy or anything, but Big Brother. Man, I absolutely loved Big Brother back in the early days, and there are certain seasons of that show that I go back to and watch over and over and over again. And, we used to make fun of this stuff. Back in the early 2000s, we made fun of reality TV, of all of these shows that would be on TLC and stuff like that, as just being this garbage content that they just vomited out because it was cheap and easy to produce. And that's not entirely wrong, but there's something very charming about going back to that era now, because things these days in 2024, they're not as positive and happy and innocent and uplifting as they used to be. Everything has a very dark tone to it. Everything is very political. There's just no joy left in anything. And there was so much just pure joy and excitement to those shows, like The Amazing Race. These people racing around the world, doing all these cool challenges and stuff. Well, Big Brother was based on the idea of putting about 14 people in a house and letting them sort of have this social experiment where they weekly decide who to vote off the island, so to speak. Not the island, the house, right? That was Survivor. But, they had to do physical challenges. They had to do mental challenges to compete for things like head of household or luxury items in the home or the power of veto, for example. And I just found it absolutely fascinating, even though I'm sure a large portion of the show was probably guided, if not scripted. I just really find it fascinating to sit down for like 30 episodes and really watch how these people interact with each other and how cutthroat some people can be. I really enjoy that show, and I watch a season or two of Big Brother pretty much every year. I'm watching season 8 right now, and it's just a lot of fun. Anyways, let's see what Shawn's got for his last one.
Alright, my last pick for this video is Chucky. My 3 favorite horror movie franchises are Nightmare, Friday, Chucky. Although each one of these has their own reboot movie, and each one of these has their own TV series. Okay, Friday kind of doesn't, but it kind of does, whatever. We don't need to get into the history right now. But Chucky is the best of those in the sense that the TV series really carries on the continuity and adds so much more to the movies than were there before. And since we've had the creator of the franchise from beginning to end, we have growth in style and everything because the creator has grown. But because it is the same creator, we have the same integrity and love put into these characters because he's not just trying to cash grab. This is his baby doll. And I'm hoping he loves what he's doing because it comes through really well that he does. And I think if anyone's a horror fan and loves Child's Play, I think they need to watch Chucky. I don't hear enough people talk about it. I'm so happy there's a 3rd season. It seemed like it was touch and go for a while, so I'm really happy that's dropping this month, the 3rd season. We'll have to see where it goes from there. Now, like I said, with when I was mentioning Breaking Bad, I love when a series ends and people know how to close it out properly. But I'm kind of a hypocrite there because I never know how to end a video or anything really. So I'm gonna sit back. Wait, I'm already sitting back. You know what I mean? I'm gonna just I'm leaving it to you. You end the video, okay? I'm gonna walk away, let you do all the work with the editing of this live conversation, and putting it together and publishing it and advertising it or whatever you do, you know. And I'll just reap all the rewards. Thanks a lot for having me on the NerdCrave program.
Really need one of those shepherd's hook things just to pull you off the stage there. Man, how do we get this guy off the stage, right? Okay, well, I'm gonna wrap it up with the show that really made me who I am. And I've made a couple videos on this channel about this show because this show turned me into a self-described nerd, and that show is NBC's Chuck, starring Zachary Levi. Man, you know, the year was roughly 2010, 2008, something like that. I'm kind of ashamed that I don't know exactly the dates, but when I discovered this show, and it was on live TV, and this predated really any access to streaming services or anything like that. And, you know, this was right at the beginning of the nerd boom, if you will. And I watched a really interesting YouTube video, and if I can find it again, I'll link it down below in the description, because it was a video talking about kind of the progression of the nerd boom through the 2010s and into the 2020s and where it sort of died off. But you know, my whole journey of starting to go to Comic Cons and collecting comic books again and getting back into video games, the entire focus of this channel being video games now, all stems down to the show Chuck and the characters on that show, their enthusiasm for things like Halo Reach, for example, or, you know, old video game history like Zork, for example, and movies like Tron, that were constantly referenced all throughout this show. The show takes place in a Buy More, which is basically like a Future Shop or a Best Buy, an electronics store, and all of these nerds that work in the nerd herd doing the repairing cell phones and all of that sort of thing, and they're selling stuff, and you know, it's a really dysfunctional family of people that work there, not unlike if you've seen the show Superstore that happens in like a fictional Walmart, if you will. That same sort of vibe, but that's only a small part of the show, because the main character, Chuck, gets basically a CIA database downloaded into his brain, sort of accidentally, and he ends up getting wrapped up in all these government plots and, you know, dragged into all these spy plots because he ends up having all this knowledge of the CIA computers in his brain that the government can't access because he's the only copy, if you will. So it's this duality in this show of this, you know, this dork, this nerd who has never really been all that good at anything, all of a sudden having to be a jock, you know, for his night job, you know, the day job of being the nerd and the night job of being the jock, and, you know, the juxtaposition of those two lives colliding and him trying to keep one a secret and being ashamed of the other one, trying to become more than he is in one way and, you know, being forced to remain less than he is in the other. It was really just such a charming, heartwarming family show, and one of the last family-oriented shows that I think really existed. Now, this show was on its last legs from the beginning. It was never super popular, but it had a rabid fan base of people that absolutely loved the show. I was one of them. Zachary Levi had a website. You've probably seen me on this channel wearing the Nerd Machine t-shirt. That was his website. And there was a community of people there that would chat and live chat during the shows and after the shows. And Zach Levi himself come in to the website and chat with, the fans and stuff like that. And we bought merch. I wrote articles for the website. This was really me dipping my toes into becoming a nerd for the very first time. And I will forever cherish what Chuck and Zach Levi gave to me, because he turned me really into how I identify as a nerd today. Anyways, guys, thanks for sticking around. If you made it to the end of this video, you are a champ, because us old farts are long-winded and we can just talk and talk and talk and talk. At least speaking for Shawn. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Stay classy.